Boy, the show is called Smile Jamaica, but every now and again we have to deal with some issues that we don't even really understand what's going on sometimes. But let me move on with this one. Educators are strongly recommending that Jamaica's education system be proactive in arresting the widening wave of pornography addiction among the nation's school children. Whew. With us now to unpack this sensitive but very controversial topic is our friend from the Jamaica Association of Principals of Secondary Schools. He's the principal at William Nib, Mr. Linvern Wright. Principal, morning, sir. Welcome to Smile. How are you, sir?
Morning, sir.
I'm good. Morning, Dale. Morning, Ned.
Boy, I read something up front. I'm just going to read it. I'm not asking you a question just yet, but I read something up front about us being in the top 6 in the world of looking at pornography. Let me tell you exactly. It says Jamaica was ranked at number 6 in the world for searches including the term porn during the period, behind Mongolia, Nepal, Myanmar, Zambia, and Trinidad and Tobago. Having said that, we're talking about youngsters this morning. I said you're a principal of a high school. Any issues with this at your school first?
Yes, I think all of us as principals have come across it, and there's a level of attention being given it, a level of concernation about it. But I just think we have to find constructive ways of responding to it, because I've hardly known a time when there has not been a kind of concernation to maybe a kind of or oversexed young people in the way many people look at it. But what I think we have to do is look at constructive approaches to it, through things like dialogue, through things like getting them to use social media much better. How we talk with them as adults, because I think one of the things that's happening is that our relationships in many instances with them is one of alienation rather than one of inclusion. And I think those are things that are going to help us to get them better, understand themselves, understand their self-esteem, and we can see how we can constructively help them through all of this.
Yeah, it is a morning program, sir, and I will ask you to be careful of how we speak about what we're speaking about. But you said yes when I asked if you had issues at your school. What kind of issues are we talking about? And again, be careful.
In relation to pornography, that's what you're talking?
Yeah.
Yes. The matter is that many children are doing their searches. We have heard, I've got reports of students on the street sometimes, people from different businesses calling me to telling me that they see them in very compromising positions. We have investigated, we have found some to be true, some not so true. But the fact is that it does exist. And I think it's a nationwide problem. It's just that I am anecdotally a part of the whole thing.
Yeah. I'm glad you said it's a nationwide problem, sir, because I feel like what we're seeing in our students is a reflection of what's happening in the larger society in terms of the consumption of pornography, as never cited in the data. Would you have seen an increase in it since COVID-19 and the fact that the students were online for more of the day than they were in normal times?
I have nothing to really say. I've seen an increase. I've certainly seen it, and it's really because of social media.
Okay.
In your face, I think persons are far more. You see, we just have to not be hypocritical, as you're saying. I think you sort of say it in a way. It suggests that the children are hooked to this thing, and our adults are not about that. As we know in Jamaica, we say monkey see monkey do.
Right.
The fact is that the level of permissiveness, there are some things that we have to just admit. The level of permissiveness in many of the ads that are out there, maybe not necessarily on the mainstream media, but on social media, many things have a sexual connotation. And I think many people who do businesses actually understand the appeal of the sexual to many people. They're selling goods, even though maybe it has nothing to do with the goods,
right.
But it just gets emotionally, and our young people are far less capable of handling some of these things than many of our adults, and maybe many of our adults can too. Mm-hmm. But if you call that young people really are meant to be scaffolded by us, because I put them to cars that have the throttle 100% floored, but they have no brakes. It's the rest of us who have to actually put a brakes on them. And I guess that's what my colleague was pretty much saying, that, schools have to get like that, because we are still the only structured institutional exposure that many of these kids have to anything that could really give them a sense of direction.
Yeah. Your colleague, Principal Darian Henry, who we know very well, and I'm going to quote something that he says. He said, the education system has to respond with a sense of urgency at the high school level and at the primary school level. The issue of pornography, the issue of open sex has become so much of a concern that we need to turn a greater spotlight on it. Then he says policy needs to respond and teaching and learning need to respond. If you agree with that, what does that mean? When you say policy needs to respond and teaching and learning needs to respond.
I don't know that I give much thought to it in terms of policy, and I don't know what policy could do in relation to it, except if there are things illegal that are happening, then we get to policy managing that. But I think things like that, things sexual, are best done through socialization, been through serious socialization programs. And as I said, as a society, our reflectiveness has got to be very serious about where we want to go. So if it is that we figure that this matters, then we all have to have some kind of dialogue about it. And I think dialogue exists about it. I mean, we really must not. I mean, sometimes people complain about the church, but the church does speak to many of these things. And I have been to programs in churches that are seeking to deal with this. I have seen guidance counselors right across schools I have been including here attempting to deal with it. I've had conversations with people from CDA who are attempting to deal with it, both in terms of the legal framework and prosecuting people if it is that people are doing things that are illegal. And I've heard some musicians talk about it, but I don't think that we're doing that enough in terms of how to get people to be careful about many of these things. So for me, it's a broad-based thing. In the spaces out there, what is it that happens on our buses, for example? Because I have this thing that, between yard gate and school gate, many of us don't know what happens. And we are assuming sometimes that parents are not saying this should happen for the children and that's school this. But what you need in the rest of society is a reinforcement. We have got to have reinforcement in our movies. I mean, look at the movie exposure that our kids have. I don't think we talk about those things enough. It's the exposure to these things that cause the expression of many things too, because they figure that it's okay if it is that we create the content for them. And I think we're not talking enough about the kind of content that we are creating, either for ads or for movies, for these people to consume. And with TikTok and all of these different social media, where the children literally have the sex in their hand. What really can schools do about that if it is that we don't? Well, in that case, maybe policy is something that has got to be, a part of the whole thing, and how we have young people managing how they go online. But I really believe that the most dangerous thing that we have right now, there are many parents who feel when they have the children in their home, the home is private. Once they have a phone, it is not private. One of the things I said to my parents finally is that, look here, when I have a child in my home, the phone, I bought that for is that it's a part of what it is that is exposing them to things that are not, making them pay attention to their work, and their work is not good. I have a right and I think a responsibility to intervene, to look and to correct and to advise and to counsel.
Yeah, it needs a lot of sensitization, as you said, sir, because if I'm sharing an instrument with my child, and then I go on the computer and I'm watching pornography, when the child comes back, the history of what I'm watching is going to pop up while they're using the computer as well. But you raised something that Neville and I were talking about, and that I talk about all the time. I'm glad you said it. Our children are curious. They want to see things. They're looking for information, and it is on us to provide content that is going to guide them. So you said the word socialization programs, the importance of it. No, I'm sighing because when we bring it up, people make socialization programs seem like, and you say to corporate Jamaica, help us do socialization programs. How important is it? You tell them, because they don't think I know what I'm talking about.
It's important, but I just want to say one quick thing. Because it's socialization programs. I've said to people, there was a book I read once called Endangered Minds. Very early in my teaching career, I read that. And it spoke to huge amounts of money. I read that book in the 90s. The huge amounts of money that are spent by the corporate world to get young people to actually engage in things from early that are going to make sense for profits.
Yes.
And I do not think that as a society we discuss enough how dangerous it is to be doing things for profit without considering what we want our society to look like down the road. We want prosperity now, and we want some money now, and we want to make profits now. But what is it we want for our young people? And it's not just about sex, it's about crime, it's about everything. And sometimes we talk about socialization programs to go to that. What we really just need is socialization, because if it is that socialization has to come down to a program in schools and program in church, we have lost it as a society.
Correct.
What we want is that our social spaces that our children traverse daily and are there. So in our schools, in our homes, in our bus centers. I mean, the level of looseness I find in our bus centers and in our buses. We talk about the Road Traffic Act and what ought to happen for it. You know, maybe that's what Darren is talking about. That one of the things that ought to happen is that, you know, we keep saying it's our culture. But if culture is inimical to your future, you've got to look at what culture is, because I think culture can be also about the things that are helping our people to live more harmoniously.
Values and attitudes.
It can be more palatable. You know, those are some of the things that we have got to look at. Culture doesn't have to be loose, and we say because it's culture, we just accept it.
Yep.
You know?
What's the name of the book?
Endangered Minds.
Okay. Good to see you, sir. Good to see you. Wish we never had to be talking about this. We could have talked some football and stuff, but really, really great to see you, sir. And I hope, I'm going to end, and again, it's not a question. Now, Dr. Alfred Dawes, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Windsor Wellness Center, he said, and I quote, "In the era of social media, we run the risk of being desensitized by what I call outrage porn, where we see these incidents, whether it's school children fighting, using drugs, doing sexually suggestive dance moves, or being edged on by adults to do sexually compromising acts. We are seeing all of these things and normalizing them. And this is where I think we were talking just now. He says, whereas the Broadcasting Commission regulates the mainstream media, nobody is regulating exactly what is being shared on social media."
That's true, and it's the challenge of homes, it's the challenge of education, it's the challenge of the media who cares about this.
Yep.
And I think that those are difficult things to grapple with, but we're going to have to grapple with them and find the answers to help all of us.
Yeah.
Because it's not just for the children.
Blessings and love, my friend. Thanks for speaking with us this morning. Look after yourself.
Jamaica Association of Principals of Secondary Schools. President Linvern.
I said earlier that there's an African proverb that said the ruin of the nation begins in the homes of its people.
Yeah. Coming up next, guys, we speak with PAJ honoree Valerie Pat Riley. More